Oh, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I just witnessed Barcelona dismantle Chelsea 4-1 in the first leg of the UWCL semifinals. I was going to talk about both the UWCL semifinal games separately. I was actually at the Arsenal-Lyon game yesterday. I have a match day vlog planned for that. I hopefully will have that out in the next few days, and I will talk more in depth about that in that video. But I think I have some fairly similar thoughts on both of the games, and it'd be more of an interesting video if I talked about them both in this video with the implication of what it means for the power balance of women's football in Europe, and specifically what England's place within that power balance is. Because I think the English game is at a pretty good point right now, and it's certainly better than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. And there is a real good chance to test that in these semifinals, where we had two English sides going up against the two teams that have been the dominant forces in the women's game for the past 5 years, and in Lyon's case, even the past 15. Um, so there are questions over whether these teams could take that next big step forward, especially Chelsea, who have played Barcelona very close in some of the more recent Champions League seasons. But today they didn't really show that, and neither did Arsenal. And I think in both cases, the English team did actually perform pretty well, and yet they didn't quite have that clutch factor. They didn't quite take their chances. And in the end, the talent, skill, composure of Lyon and Barcelona shone through. And what we've kind of seen in these semifinals is there's still a long way to go. The English teams aren't quite there yet. And there are plenty of positives to take from this. And I don't think Chelsea were as bad as the score in the Barcelona game suggests. They kind of collapsed in the end. Arsenal, in their game, played pretty well. They created some decent chances. I think they actually created about the same number of chances Lyon did, and had more of the possession for a lot of the game, and yet they were still the ones who ended up losing. There were two moments of some bad defending, and that was enough. You give Lyon any sort of opportunity, and of course they're going to take it. Lyon does have a really, really talented team, and even though Arsenal does have quite a good team, they're not on Lyon's level. And even though Chelsea has a good team and have even made some signings in January to improve their standing, especially Naomi Girma was massive. This is arguably the very best defender on the planet signing for Chelsea. So, they were trying to take the next step, and there was legitimate reason to think that maybe they could, and yet they still didn't have the experience. They still didn't have the overall quality to match Barcelona, who I think were the better team in the Chelsea game. But Chelsea weren't, they weren't completely out of it. They played pretty well. And 4-1's probably a harsh score, but they did deserve to lose. And Arsenal, in the same way, didn't play badly, and yet they still were second best. They probably did deserve to lose. And when you give teams of Lyon or Barcelona's quality the opportunity to take a chance and score, then like they're going to. You can't give Lyon and Barcelona those kind of opportunities that Lyon or that Arsenal and Chelsea did. So ultimately, all we've seen is that the English game isn't quite there yet. And that's okay. The English game is rapidly improving, and I think it's a pretty exciting time to be a fan of women's football in England right now, because it certainly has made improvements. And you see that in terms of the quality of English players that are coming in right now. England didn't used to have a team capable of reaching back to back major tournament finals in the Euros and World Cup. And on top of that, we see more and more really high quality non English players also coming into the WSL, the likes of Mariana Caldente or Naomi Girma. So there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the improving standard of the WSL and the improving standard of English players in women's football right now. And you could see that in the Champions League, where Chelsea, Arsenal, and Man City were all in the quarterfinals. England was actually the only nation that had all three teams make the quarterfinals. That's pretty exciting. And yet, when it really came down to it, they still don't quite have enough to get over that line and beat the very best of the best. And there is a reason that Lyon and Barcelona keep meeting in the Champions League finals. And probably after seeing the first legs they're most likely going to meet again this season. Like, they do have the most experienced and probably the most skilled overall lineups of any team in Europe, any teams, I should say. Um, so it's probably not that surprising still that Lyon and Barcelona are, the best teams out there. And they probably will continue to be for the next few years. However, the way women's football is going in England, I think English teams will eventually break through that barrier. And that's kind of exciting to see. I'm a bit conflicted on this because as an Arsenal supporter, I was quite happy to see him lose 4-1 to Barcelona. I keep getting really scared that Chelsea might one day win the Champions League, and then all of a sudden we're not going to be the only team that has won it. But uh, I mean, there's a part of me that wants to see women's football do well, but also I kind of I want an English team to win, but I want that English team to be Arsenal in it. And Arsenal's made some pretty big improvements this season. They've certainly looked really good under Rennie Schlagers, and if they continue the way they've been going this season, and I'll see what they do in the summer, they could potentially build on the good players that they've had. And bringing in Mariona Caldente was huge for us this season, and she's been a massive boost for us uh, in the WSL and League Cup and whatever. Like, it's been a really big improvement. I think that Chelsea keeps bringing in big players, so eventually we are going to see a team win from England again, and we might see England even become the dominant force in women's football in Europe, but they're not there yet. So perhaps in the coming years that'll happen, but it's fairly clear in these semifinals that Barcelona and Lyon are still very much the highest class of competition in Europe, and will probably be so at least for the next 2-3 years.